Alright, so, 1, it's my birthday. Yay. And 2, I have waited around a week, I think, since the Bungie layoff situation to kind of get all of the information that we need to make a genuine discussion about what the hell happened. Now, I apologize for being a little bit low energy on this one. I have been sick for the past week as well, so I've kind of just had things roll over me as time goes on, but we're going to be talking about what exactly happened at Bungie. For those of you that don't know, around a week ago, we had Bungie laying off 100-ish employees at that time. I think the number is still around 100, which is 8% of their total workforce, and among them being some of the best talent we have seen in the gaming industry as a whole. People like Michael Salvatore, the composer for Destiny for the past decade, giving Destiny its kind of identity in terms of its music and just general ambiance, but a lot of people were lost. And a lot of people are not going to be happy about that. Now, there were some discussions mostly fueled by Jason Schreier's article talking about Bungie as well, and if you don't know who Jason Schreier is, he's also the guy that broke the news on the internal struggles of Anthem, and in general, just a really, really good journalist that almost never gets anything wrong. I haven't seen a situation where he hasn't reported on it almost 100% factually. He's actually a very, very good source, and his sources say that a lot of problems were happening at Bungie in this current year with Lightfall. Firstly, they missed a revenue projection of 45%, which is a very big miss for a lot of people, and it's pretty obvious that they are struggling. So as a result, layoffs had to happen, but we didn't really know all the specifics. Now, most of the information I'm getting from right now is from Paul Tassi, which is a notorious and honestly a pretty good reporter on the state of Destiny 2. He doesn't just report on Destiny 2, but that's mainly what I know him for. He has a YouTube channel and he has an article linked on Forbes that I will have down in the description and the pinned comment, because this is where I'm getting most of my information. He's mainly repeated things that either are already kind of common knowledge at this point from Jason Schreier's articles, or in general is just sources from employees from Bungie directly. Most of these are internal as opposed to external, so you won't be seeing this on Twitter, but these are things that he has discussed. I'm just going to go over them. Now, once again, I will be leaving it down in the description and the pinned comment. I implore you, please go support him, read the article, do whatever you want to do. I just want to let you know where this is coming from. Now, let's talk about what led to the layoffs, or rather the steps that were taken to avoid them in the first place. Now, as many people know, Bungie was bought out by Sony for $1 billion with a B, and that is a lot of money. Even with that, Sony is not to blame for the management decisions at Bungie. They have had reportedly almost zero control over Bungie as a company. Even employees agree that they have seen nothing about Sony in their management meetings or even just company meetings as a whole. If anything, the Sony money is what kept Bungie afloat. Reportedly, if they weren't bought up by Sony, at this point, as an independent studio, they would almost be in jeopardy of bankruptcy, not being able to pay their employees or develop Destiny, because Destiny is a very expensive game. Every 4 months, you get an insane PvE package with PvP sprinkled in a little bit. You have a bunch of cutscenes, which are no doubt very expensive to produce, and there are a lot of them. A lot of voice actors for, I believe, 8 to 12 different languages, and just in general, the art teams in general, because paying everybody is not cheap, and making sure they get what they deserve is also not cheap. So Destiny 2 is not a cheap game to produce. That Sony money kept them afloat for a very long time, but didn't last as long as it should have. So with the amount of revenue they were getting from this year being less than 45% of what they anticipated, they had to take some decisions. Now, reportedly, annual bonuses were forfeited at the executive level. This is something we don't really see a lot. A lot of the time, executives will take the money and run, especially for people like Activision, Capcom, Ubisoft, EA. All these executives get massive bonuses every year while they lay off hundreds and thousands of employees every year. So this is something that Bungie does not do. They have forfeited annual bonuses, especially the CEO has reportedly just not taken their annual bonuses and instead put that back into the company so that they could keep people afloat as opposed to letting people go. That is something that I was hoping was actually the case, because I would hate to see a company that thrives on community engagement actively sabotaging itself by making such a horrible decision. Now, I'm not saying that Pete Parsons is an absolute saint for this. He's not exactly devoid of all blame in this current situation, but there were attempts made to keep people. Okay, could you not hit the wall, Dick, please? Thank you. There were choices explicitly made to avoid this type of situation, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. Now, here's something that I really want to discuss, and it means a lot to me to talk about it. Joe Blackburn is not the bad guy. He's not another corporate suit. He didn't do anything to cause this in any way. The only thing that happened that was indirectly responsible for this is the creative risk that was Lightfall. They intended to create a story that transpired over the course of a year instead of the course of the start of the expansion and then little bits and pieces to build up to the final shape. He wanted to create a story and a year that built on itself over time as opposed to being front-loaded and then have things built off of that instead. It was a creative risk, and unfortunately it didn't really work. It was a big bet, and that bet didn't go through the way they wanted, and unfortunately that caused a lot of bad problems. But don't get this wrong. Joe Blackburn is not a bad guy. He is just a guy that enjoys the game and wanted to try making something new for the people that love the game. He enjoys the game as much as we do. He is a ordinary Joe, excuse the pun, but he is just a normal guy and he just likes to play the game. You've seen him on his live streams, you've seen him on Twitter. He's just talking about things he's done, the titles, the triumphs, him completing Crota Master, all this stuff. He's just a normal player. He wants the game to be great for everybody, not just himself, and he's trying his best. Unfortunately, with Lightfall, it was a miss. But he did work really hard to make Witch Queen and Lightfall as well as best it could be. And honestly, where the game's at right now, Season of the Witch, it's working a little bit. Season of the Witch was incredibly good. So I have no reason to believe that Joe Blackburn is the enemy. He's just doing his best to make the game as good as it could possibly be. And unfortunately, due to circumstances outside of his control, things just went sour. So don't go on his ass for things that he didn't do. Let's talk about the new Bungie HQ. Now, this was reportedly a separate project and was budgeted apart from the development of Destiny. The $1.2 billion of Sony money was mainly used for employee retention to maintain current talent with shares in Bungie stock, as well as to avoid layoffs at all costs, which wasn't what it was initially designed for. So employee retention was something that Bungie really tried to do their best on, because I don't know if anyone has noticed, but there's a high amount of turnover when it comes to the gaming industry in terms of talent. People get let go every single day and they're always looking for more work. So if you can keep your talent in one place, it means the game is going to be better as a whole, and games in the future will be better as a whole. The fact that we lost such a talented composer and talented developers as well in this layoff is a massive blow, and something that I imagine they never wanted to happen, because why would they want to lose some of their best workers because of something they did? I don't imagine this is something that they wanted to do in the first place. And something I think everyone should know, especially the Twitter fucks, or the X fucks, whatever they are, the people that sit on Twitter/X and just complain all the time. This one's for you. Employees are just as mad as us. They aren't the enemy. No one is, really. You can point a finger at management and say that they made a horrible bet and lost, and that is true, but they didn't intend to lose. Nobody just intends to lose 100 employees and billions of dollars because they made a bad bet. They don't intend for that. Of course, there were options that could have been taken to avoid this, and they didn't take it, and that's a problem on management. Everyone agrees that the management situation is what the real problem is. But they aren't an enemy. At the end of the day, they're trying to keep the game running and the studio running to make the game run. So you can't really just point at them and be the bad guy. There they are. get them. That's not gonna work. It's not gonna do anything. You just need to understand that there are actual people here, and those people are trying to keep their lights on as well as keep the game running for us. Because at the end of the day, it's a video game. It's meant to be fun. It's not meant to be an absolute disaster. All right, now I'm done talking about the layoffs. Let's talk about the future, aka the final shape. What's gonna happen? What are the plans? What's going on internally? There will not be a 30th anniversary type DLC like what happened for Witch Queen. There is not enough time for that. The delay was known for months in advance, but not nearly long enough to start building for the delay specifically. There is something planned for the gap between the seasonal story and the final shape, but there's no information. Just know that there's something there that they're trying to do. They're not going to leave us dry, but who gives a shit? We know you're going to be back for final shape anyway, and you've probably still got your pre-orders anyway. But even if a lot of people are going to be back for final shape, that still does put Bungie in a lot of hot water. Bungie kind of put all of their eggs in one basket with Destiny, and there's no real way for them to make revenue outside of the game, so they have to have something planned, and this gap could very well end up jeopardizing more employees if not pulled off correctly. Now I hope that them laying off 8% of their workforce gives them a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to finances and all the money that they have left, and I'm hoping that things don't go worse in between now and the release of Final Shape. We can only pray that that doesn't happen, but just know that that gap could very well lead to more layoffs or more budget cuts in the way the game is produced. So hopefully the things that they have planned will be enough. While we're on the topic of money, we should probably talk about what Bungie is planning on doing in terms of revenue. Now, they want to be a multi-IP studio. That is their design, that is their future. They want to be a multi-IP studio. With things like Matter and Marathon and Destiny, they want to have multiple sources of revenue as well as multiple games to keep the studio running. The problem is with how big the studio is and them betting on Destiny alone, that comes with microtransactions. And it's not just us that don't like the idea, it's employees too. In multiple company meetings, devs advocated for less microtransactions, especially during the holiday events, which are just infested with them. $20-$25 bundles for literally nothing. But they are told that they are needed. With Destiny being Bungie's only source of revenue, they have no choice. Their hands are literally tied when it comes to that. And I believe that. Because even the small things like event cards, contrary to popular belief, they sell really well, even though they're so bad. Like, I think that the event cards are probably the most overall boring, just completely non-essential in the way that you play the game. They're just so non-essential, but they sell really well. The game wouldn't exist as it is right now without them, which is a weird thing to say, but the only way that this game will continue to exist is if people buy microtransactions. That's just how revenue is designed. That is how this is going to function. Now, unfortunately, there is not going to be a future where Destiny is void of microtransactions. Maybe in the future, when Bungie has multiple sources of revenue, where they don't have to worry as much about what happens to the revenue stream if people stop playing, but hopefully in the future, this will be less of an issue for us to deal with, seeing as the devs don't want it in there either. They're tired of it. All of these armor sets that they make are locked behind a paywall, which means most people are never going to see them, and it's really disappointing for the developers. And hopefully, with things like Marathon and their upcoming Matter project, whatever that is, the revenue streams will be diverted enough where they can stop laying into the microtransactions as much. Now, let's talk about those other projects, more specifically Marathon, especially with that report from, I believe, Astacross, I think was the one to shed light on it the most, with the fact that not really many people would want to play Marathon in its current state. Marathon doesn't really have a future as opposed to Destiny 2. Now, it very well could. It could pop off whenever it's released in like 2025, but in its currently early stage stages, it has no real traction with the people that are playing it. So there are no plans that the development of Marathon is going to pull resources from Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is their big moneymaker. It's the biggest project they have, and with Marathon not really succeeding in the way they want it to, they have to double down on Destiny to keep their business afloat. So Marathon, for those of you that are constantly saying Marathon is the death of Destiny, Marathon's going to kill Destiny 2, Destiny 2's dead, Marathon's gonna succeed and grab the crown. There is no crown, there is no Marathon. Destiny lives forever as much as you hate it. Marathon is not killing Destiny anytime soon. So what about Destiny as it is right now? How's the game going to look when the final shape is going to come out, or what is even the current state of the game right now with all these layoffs happening? Final shape is where we're going right now, and it's expected to be the best expansion it can possibly be. And employees are saying that the bar that they are reaching for is beyond the Taken King and Forsaken in terms of size, campaign, story. They want to make this one a thing to remember. Even with the 6-month delay, to hit the goals they want, it's going to be rough and most likely require an amount of crunch time. Even if its current state, as it is, the features and ideas are actually pretty solid, as they have said in the reports, and they're really enjoyable. Good news all around. Final Shape is looking really, really good. They're even ahead of their future work schedule, but they want to do even more than planned. And some crunch will be needed if they intend to deliver on their vision, but it's good that the developers want to put in more. Enough of this over-delivery garbage. I forget who the guy is, because he just has a really kickable face, and I hate to say that, but he does. He was at a GDC talk. He was talking about how over-delivery is the death of video games, where creating a good product is not actually the correct way to run a business. You create a stagnant product or a segmented product and then deliver it over time as their own products. Which, I mean, what the hell is that? He called Witch Queen an over-delivery, when in my recent memory, Witch Queen is probably the best expansion we've ever had. And fuck you, I will say it, Taken King is not as good as Witch Queen. The campaign wasn't as varied nor as interesting as Witch Queen. The exotics, as much as everyone likes to say it, we get, 3 exotic armor pieces and at least 2 exotic weapons per season, and that's every 4 months. So multiply that by 4, you have 12 exotic armor pieces and 8 exotic weapons. Taken King had exotics where picking up glimmer and ammo was the main function of the exotic. I forget what it's called, it's some alchemist something, but these are the type of exotics that we got in the Taken King. Just basic ass shit. Every season, we get exotics where they are completely fundamentally changing the way you play the game. Arbor Warden, or whatever it's called, the one where you punch a grenade and you can throw a barricade. That thing is sick as fuck. But also like Mothkeeper Wraps. Where are you going to see that in Destiny 1? Fucking nowhere. All the Destiny 1 exotics suck ass. I do not care what you say. This is my firm opinion. Witch Queen, and I hope to say this for the final shape, is just better than Taken King. You have nostalgia glasses super glued to your fucking eyes. I played it recently. It's not as good as you think it is. It's good. Like, it's not bad, but like, come on. How are you gonna say that's better than the Witch Queen? A tangent over. But they want to make Final Shape as good as it can possibly be, and they are striving to succeed the Taken King and even Forsaken. Now, Forsaken is a big, big thing to aspire to, seeing as they had, I think it was 3 or 4 AAA studios to support them in the creation of Forsaken. Now, if they're reaching for that bar as an independent studio, that is a high-ass bar. So I hope that they can get it right, and the fact that devs are actively pushing to put more time in to make the game as good as it can possibly be, instead of just segmenting it over the year, I pray, because it's looking to be really good, and I hope it is. Let's talk about PvP. Now, the PvP Strike team is actually making significant progress on the first Crucible map pack. Even with them being impacted by the layoffs, there are no signs of it being cancelled, which is good. The Crucible map pack is something that is probably going to revitalize a significant portion of the PvP player base, and I hope it's as good as it sounds like it's being, because it sounds like it's going to be really, really good. Another mechanic that we've gotten a lot of of word about, but not really any updates on, is in-game LFG. Now, surprisingly, apparently, according to the developers, it is much more complex internally than anyone would believe them if they said it on Twitter. If they said it on Twitter, they would probably be roasted, saying that in-game LFG would probably be the easiest thing in the world to create. From a design perspective, it is incredibly difficult, regardless of how simple it will seem from the outside. It will be launching with the final shape, but it has not been easy for them in the slightest. And I won't lie, I'm guilty of this too. I just assumed that in-game LFG was incredibly easy to make because, I don't know, I don't make games. I don't really know how this stuff works. So it's a lot easier to say, oh, it's just a list and you click on it and you check a box and then you play the game. Nope, it's just a lot more complex internally than they imagined, and it's going to be there in the final shape, but don't just be an asshole and say, well, it should have been in there from launch. It's not going to be like that. It's not that easy. After all that discussion, it's been like 20 minutes. I've kind of been rambling on for a long time, but there's just one point. There's this nice bullet point on my list that I just want to cross off so bad, and I want this to be the main takeaway from the video. Bungie is not the enemy. They are not dead. They are trying their best. Employees want to do the best things that they can do to make the game as good for the players, but the community seems to bet on their failure a lot, and I've noticed this a lot as time has gone on. I've been playing since Age of Triumph onward. I know I'm not a Destiny 1 vet. I didn't play the alpha, I didn't play the beta, but I've been playing the game for a long time, and there's been this steady decline in community morale, not necessarily because of the state of the game, but because of the way people look at Destiny as something that they've been playing for literal years. You've got the Taken Kings, the Taken King gamers, the Forsaken gamers, they have this idea that the game used to be so much better, and why can't it just be like this? The devs hate us, they don't want us to have good things, and sometimes it's true. With that GDC talk, it didn't help, it made things worse, right? But at the end of the day, they're not trying to make a game worse than it was last year. They are trying to make it as good as possible for us to enjoy, because that's what their job is. They want to make things that we enjoy and what they enjoy in turn. And I've seen this sentiment that the developers hate us, they don't want to deliver, Destiny is in the worst spot it's ever been, when realistically from a design perspective is the best state it's ever been, even since launch of Destiny 1, the Taken King, Forsaken. At this current moment, Destiny is at its near peak, and with Final Shape, it will reach that peak. And I am confident in saying that we are going to be saying that Final Shape was good and that we will enjoy it. But the problem is, a lot of the time, the developers are not only fighting to make the game the best it can be, but they're also fighting community sentiment at the same time. Players just in general need to be more understanding and less entitled to Bungie's time and money. Yes, they make games for you. They are a company. That is their job. They are not your bitch. They are not your mom that delivers you food on a silver platter. You are not entitled to their work and time and money because you buy their games. They are not going to sit there and make a game just for you, just so you can go on Twitter and say the game was so much better back in Forsaken. They're trying to do their best, give them some time, and have a little perspective.
So I'm asking you one last time to rise.
Now that's going to be all for me today. That is the last thing I want to say on this, because I feel like the community doesn't give Bungie enough credit for what they try to do. In an industry full of toxicity and scandals and horrible business practices, it's so nice to have one company that actually does care to a degree what happens to both their employees and what they deliver to their players. Even when sometimes it's not always 100% of the time correct, it is something that we should at least appreciate sometimes. I'm not going to say that the layoffs were a good thing. I believe it's an inexorably bad thing that's going to hurt us more than help us, but it's not because of malice. It's not because of them wanting to save money, just like a lot of other companies. It was an inevitability for them at a time where they couldn't really afford to do that. So unfortunately, that's just kind of the future we live in now. But you should believe that Bungie's not the bad guy and that they're doing their best. That'll be all for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry for the big gap in between videos. It's been a rough couple months. So anyways, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you want to. Subscribe if you like it. I don't know. Check out Paul Tassi. He has his own YouTube channel where he does a lot of Destiny reporting, and check out his article on Forbes. I'll leave it linked as well. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. See you later.